It is now my pleasure to introduce the next storyteller, who says this about her favorite Jewish food. Can I say the entire Israeli breakfast served at any kibbutz, hotel, or home in Israel between 1979 and today? And if you have ever had an Israeli breakfast, you can totally understand where I'm coming from. Please welcome Tamar Fenton.
When I was a little girl, I thought of myself as God's 4-foot Jewish emissary to the Christian masses. Not all Christians, that would be silly. Just the million or so of them that lived in my county. And here's how I arrived at my super humble assessment of my role in humanity. In the early 1960s, after new laws allowed Jews to buy homes in previously forbidden parts of California, my parents moved an hour south of LA to a growing beach town called Costa Mesa, which happened to be smack dab in the middle of Orange County, one of the most uniformly white, Christian, and politically conservative counties in the nation. If learning that there were no other Jews in town gave my parents pause, they never let on. Instead, they acted like they were the Chalutzim in Israel, determined to make the desert bloom, despite being surrounded by lots of hostile enemies and having no real agricultural skills. Given the reality of the situation, they resolved to get all those nice Gentiles prepped for the massive migration of Jews that they felt certain would soon follow. But just so that we're clear, no other Jews, at least not ones who admitted to it, settled in Costa Mesa for a very long time. In my parents' worldview, being the first Jews that any of our neighbors had met came with a responsibility. Some of the town folk were curious, some wanted to save us, plenty were hostile and wouldn't let their kids play with us. There was definitely some outright anti-Semitism, and one classmate even proudly showed me her grandfather's SS medal on a 6th grade playdate. True. These kinds of encounters compelled my parents to expand their mission from getting folks to like Jews to also sharing the beauties of Judaism with them and dispelling all sorts of misconceptions about our people. My parents' mission became our whole family's mission, and our home was sort of like a JCC, Talmud Torah, and Chabad all rolled into one small house with a mezuzah on the door. A minister from Prince of Peace Church got wind that Jews were in town and invited our family to come regularly to church so his congregants could meet real Jews and learn about the birth religion of their Savior. My dad would give a lecture about Jewish history, a holiday, or Israel using visual aids, and my mom would pass out Jewish foods that she made and dittoed song sheets. Then, standing in front of a giant cross, with Jesus looking down on us, the 5 of us would harmonize to Jewish songs like we were the Von Trapp family. Not to underplay my sister's enthusiasm for our shared mitzvah, I was the one who sang to our Christian brothers and sisters with all my heart, with all my soul, and with all my might. Having Jews in town was considered so newsworthy that for years the Daily Pilot newspaper sent a photographer to our home before each Jewish holiday to capture us doing something Jewish. Eating matzah, dressed in Purim costumes, enjoying apples and honey. And next to our photo, they printed an explanation of the holiday that my dad wrote for them. I still have the Yom Kippur photo that made the front page in fall 1973 when I was 10. My dad, sisters, and I are dressed in shul clothes, and we are each wearing our super big matching shalom necklaces. To ensure authenticity, my dad is wearing tennis shoes, though I can't imagine who he thought would call him out for wearing leather shoes in a stage. He has his tallis over his head and is blowing his 3-foot-long double-twisting shofar. My younger sister and I have smaller shofars in our mouths, puffing out our cheeks so that it looks as if blowing shofars in family unison while wearing big shalom necklaces in the backyard is how we Jews roll. is 14 and so pissed off that her friends are going to see her in the newspaper with a weird animal horn in her mouth that her shofar is barely touching her lips. And you can literally see the moment that she decided she would never participate in our family displays of Judaism again. But unlike my sister, I was just in my stride. And it was during what I call our Jew-menstruation at church and in the newspaper that I started to feel like I had found my divinely inspired calling and decided to become the self-appointed torchbearer for the family mission. L'ador vador and all of that, but with a zealotry that nobody saw coming. No show and tell was safe for my elaborate presentations about everything from Hanukkah to Charoset. During recess, I offered to teach my classmates how to write their names in Hebrew. I convinced my mom to let me invite my 5th grade hippie teachers to our house for Sukkot, and I can guarantee that the only time Mr. Matheson and Mr. Bragg have ever shaken a lulav and etrog was in my Sukkot. Providing one of my favorite teachable moments was my name, Tamar. When asked about it, I would go into excruciating detail, starting with Tamar being the Hebrew word for the fruit, the date, transitioning into the biblical story of Tamar that includes 2 dead husbands, non-procreating ejaculations, accusations of prostitution, and then triumphantly concluding with a tutorial in Jewish naming rituals. I then paused and basked in my Jew-sharing pride and assumed that their awkward silence just meant that they needed more time to process all the information that I had just shared with them. During junior high and high school, I found ways to include the Jewish angle in most of my history reports, and of course in the poetry writing unit in English class. I was hyper-vigilant about anti-Semitism and reported one of my teachers for singling me out when talking about World War II. I wrote a letter to the regional Jewish newspaper protesting the trivialization of our ancient rituals for including a photo of a dog wearing a yarmulke and a tallis with the caption, "Bark Mitzvah." And later, when they dared to caption a majorette's photo with "Baton Mitzvah." Yes, I took myself super seriously. When I was 16, my old church, Prince of Peace, hired me to teach an Israeli dance class. I was no Israeli dance expert, and they would have never known if I had just made the whole thing up. But instead, somewhere in Orange County, there are about 20 evangelicals, now in their 70s and 80s, who are masters of dancing Mayim Mayim, Zemer Atik, and Yesh Lanu Tailish. And while all of this was happening, I was longing for Jewish community. I knew it was a big no-no to covet what others had, but I'll admit that I burned with jealousy that the kids in Long Beach, 45 minutes away, all got to hang out together at the JCC. I was literally desperate to find real Jews to be with or even to fantasize about. So as my non-Jewish girlfriends were swooning over teen heartthrobs in Tiger Beat magazine, I was the lone girl dreaming of Perchik, the revolutionary who huddle followed the Siberian. And my future fantasy husband, Gene Wilder. Yes, I had the hots for Willy Wonka. I'm keenly aware that my weird childhood and my mini messiah complex that I had as a kid could have required decades of intensive psychotherapy to unravel. Instead, though, starring in our Jew-menstruations sealed my fate as a proud and engaged Jew. And it is because I never let go of the idea that I had a role to play in the ongoing Jewish story that at age 24, I was on my way to do Jewish stuff, as I always was, when I met my husband on an airplane. And he's not only more handsome than Gene Wilder, but he's the reason I ended up finding the Jewish community that I always longed for. And so, for who I am, where I am, and for the mission I am definitely still on, I am eternally grateful to my parents for not only moving to Costa Mesa, but for doing it like the Israeli pioneers who, despite all obstacles, made the desert blue.